Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Mind Your Business, Business Bites. We're so excited to have you here with us today. I want to take a moment and ask you just to share out this video. We want to get it out to as many business owners as possible. This is information you're going to need, whether you are starting a business, you have a business already, maybe you're looking at a particular seminar or workshop that you're branding. This is all you need to know about how to establish a cohesive and impactful brand. So share this out. I am Holly Whaley. I am a certified business coach, and I love to help small business owners mind their business. And what I mean by that is so many times we work in our business and not on our business. And so I want to give you the tools and resources to help you really work on your business to prepare you for 2025. We are already walking into almost the last quarter of the year, and it's time to really start looking at how we can level up for the next year. And so today I am so excited to have my amazing guest on, the one and only Brittany N. Smith, who is our branding specialist that is going to really help you learn how to brand with intention. So make sure you're sharing this out. Welcome, Brittany. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. When I saw the email go out, I was like, oh, yes. And I filled out the form as fast as I could because any opportunity that I get to spend with Miss Holly, I am there with bells on. And then secondly, any opportunity that I have to help equip other business owners as it relates to their brand, like that's my jam. So I was super excited at the opportunity. So thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I was sharing with Brittany before we got on that the individuals that reached out to me immediately were the branding and marketing teams, right? Because they truly understand what it means to have a successful brand and the importance of it. And I really believe that they really want to see you successful. And that's why, she was so quick to respond and be like, yes, I want to help. And I can tell you, so I purposely did this shameful plug. So first of all, when I bring people on here, I want you to know that I have worked with them or I have vetted them. I have a relationship with them. I'm not just throwing people on here that's going to take your money and, you'll be left with nothing. No, these are people of integrity. And so I have worked with Brittany. She did both of my book covers for my Business Essentials. So for those of you that have taken my Business Essentials course, you have seen her work as you've purchased my books. So this is some of the work that she has done specifically for me, not just me, but other people as well. So Brittany, you want to kind of tell them the work that you've done in the branding space?
Yeah, so it's funny because there are people who wake up, as kids and they're like, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be the president. But for me, it wasn't, I want to be a branding expert. This is something that came out of my love for creativity and my love for business and entrepreneurship, and it kind of like mashed itself together. And so a lot of my experience has come through my experience, if that makes sense. I was my own first client, right? So as a broke college student, I didn't know anything about branding. I didn't even know that was a thing, but I did know that I needed a website for what I was trying to do. I knew that I needed graphics for my CD cover at the time. I was trying to put out a music CD and I didn't have any money to hire somebody to do it. So I, looked up different things online and I just jumped into it. And I discovered that I had a knack for it. And then people begin to ask me, well, who did your flyer? Who did your website? Can you do mine? I'm like, sure. And so over the years, as I began doing these things for other people, and of course, and begin to study these different things, there really is an art and a science behind your brand and your branding. And so I just kind of fell in love with it, and helping people figure out what that thing is for their businesses really just, it's a joyful thing for me. So that's kind of how I got into branding. I fell into it and then I fell in love with it, and here we are.
I love that. I love that. So how do you help people identify what their brand should be or what that even really kind of means for them?
Yeah. So my approach, when I'm sitting down with someone for the very first time, is I have them tell me what's on their heart. That is my approach. I take a heart-based approach, is what I call it, because I want to know why you want to do what it is that you're doing. I want to know what about the issue or the problem that you're solving. What about that breaks your heart? I want to hear you speak to it from that place, because for some reason I'm able to connect and resonate on that level with my clients. And so once we identify the feeling behind it, the desire behind it, the passion behind it, from there, I'm able to see the picture, if that makes sense. So you might tell me that, you really have a passion for animals, and especially animals who have landed in shelters, and you really want to connect them to families who are raising up orphans. I don't know, like so you're telling me your heart story, and I'm like, oh wow, okay. And then I literally start to see it just kind of come together, because everything that's in your heart is connected to a story. And branding is really telling the story behind your business, your why, what you're doing. So that's the approach that I take. And it's funny because through those conversations, most of my clients, we end up friends afterwards because we've just shared so much, but we've also poured so much as well as we were building the brand together. So it's a beautiful thing.
I love that. So how does telling the story apply to branding?
So what I like to help people understand the difference between branding and marketing. So let's say you're having a party and you want to, have a theme to the party. Your branding is the theme. Your branding is what the invite looks like. Your branding is what's the color scheme. Your branding is what kind of music is playing. Whereas the marketing is, am I going to send the invitation via email, or am I going to send it in the postage mail, or am I going to word of mouth invite people? So the marketing is how you get it to them, but the branding, it creates the experience. And we as human beings, when we hear stories, we experience the story, right? Like, have you ever had somebody tell you a story about how, okay, here's a story, hilarious. It wasn't hilarious at the time, but I was riding my bike as a part of my self-care, and there were geese in the path, and I don't like geese, but it was either hop off my bike and turn around, or ride through them and hope that they part like the Red Sea, right? So I went with the latter, and I'm riding, and instead of the geese parting, the goose walks into my bike, and I run over the goose with my bike. And it was just horrifying and terrible. And there were people laughing, and I'm like shaking in my boots, this whole thing. And so even as I'm telling the story, you're laughing, you're like, what happened? Like, oh my gosh, did you run over a goose for real? We engage in stories. You can see the bike, you can see the goose crossing into my bike, you can watch the whole thing happen as I'm telling it. That is the power of your brand. So when people come into contact with your business, they see your colors, they see your logo, they get your energy, they get the vibe from it, they experience that. And whatever emotion that comes up for them when they experience your brand, that's what they're going to remember every time. And so that's the power of story and branding together. It creates that meshing of identification and resonation, if that makes sense, or
I
resonance.
love that. Yeah, I love that because what I'm hearing you say is that the branding is the entire experience.
Mhm.
And when people feel like they can really experience you through storytelling, right? Through telling them the story of branding and really creating these consistent experiences, then it's almost like you said a lot of your customers, because you share that space, become friends. And
Yeah.
so that's really what branding does. It's creating this experience where you can really come together as friends. Marketing is the piece of how am I going to get the information out to you so you know about it, kind
Yes,
of thing.
absolutely.
I love that. I love your geese story. Um,
It was not funny at the time, I promise you. I almost had a heart attack because it was either ride through the geese or turn off into oncoming traffic. And I was like, well, I want to live. So, yeah, moral of the story, choose life and keep on pedaling no matter what.
there you go. I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, that is amazing. So, when you're talking about a cohesive, impactful brand, how do you get there? Once you've kind of figured out the story and through that piece, how do you get there?
So I would say that cohesion um, and even impact, they're both results of consistency. Cohesion being I'm showing up the same way in all the different places, but showing up the same way. So I mean, the easiest example is making sure that you're using the same shade of blue on all of your marketing materials. If you are um, targeting your information at professional women, then you ought to be showing up as a professional woman so that they can see themselves in you, and doing that all across the board. And even in your language that you're using, you want to speak like a professional woman. In the imagery that you're using, if it's not a picture of yourself, you want to make sure that it speaks to the professional woman. So that cohesion is a product of you being consistent in identity and messaging. And then the same thing with impact. The more you experience a thing, the deeper the impact is. And so they really do go hand in hand. The cohesion of your brand directly affects the level of impact that your brand can have. Let's look at Coca-Cola, for example. Coca-Cola has that same color red. It has, during the holidays, those polar bears show up. Santa Claus shows up. In the summertime, it's young, vibrant people having a good time, sharing a Coke and a smile, right? And so everywhere you see Coca, whether you are at Coca-Cola in Japan or Coca-Cola in Australia, you see the same imagery, the same typography, the same feeling, the same vibe. And therefore, the impact is greater because I can trust that no matter where I am, when I see Coca-Cola, it's going to taste the same and it's going to look the same, and I can trust it. So that is, to me, how you have a cohesive and impactful brand. You got to be consistent.
I love that. And that is something, I'll be honest, I'm not great at, right? Especially when I first started my business, and I do kind of this side by side comparison of a website I created versus like a professional website designer. And they are very, very different, right? But it creates and shows those that I work with the difference. It's not that one. I mean, the one I created, it's not horrible. It gets the job done.
Right.
And it was within my budget and my skill set, right? But at the same time, when you then have somebody professionally do a website for you and really create a brand, then you do get a different response and you do get a different feel, and people really do take you seriously at a different level. And I think for me, the challenge was really finding my voice in branding.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you help people find their voice so that it can be consistently what they're trying to portray?
Another one of my core values is authenticity. And so in order for you to really connect with the people that you're supposed to connect with, you have to speak their language in an authentic way. So one of the exercises I might do with a client is I might give them a couple different paragraphs or phrases, and I would say, well, how would you say this? What does that look like if you were to tell a client, they really need to consider changing from this brand to another? Or how would you convince a client that they need to choose your business over another business in paragraph form? How would you do that in imagery? How would you do that through an activity, right? Getting them to get comfortable saying it their way. Because again, it's like you said earlier, when I gave the example of being friends with my clients, after a while, when you are marketing, when you're using your brand and you're marketing and all those things, you're really establishing a relationship with all these different people in your audience. And so again, people can recognize when you are being salesy, when you are being, not inauthentic, I guess is the word. And so that's my number one encouragement. Be yourself. If you are not, Dr. So-and-so, don't feel pressure to try to talk like a doctor. Like, just be you. And I've struggled with that. I've struggled with that myself until I realized that I am the juice, that I am the secret sauce. People work with me because I'm down to earth, because I take branding and I make it friendly and I make it not scary and all those things. So in terms of finding your voice, I listen to what they're saying. And then I look at it, so you wrote this, but the way you just said it to me, these two things are not the same. You need to talk to your client like you're talking to me. And so that's kind of help them become one person again.
I think with people starting to utilize AI a bit more, the authentic voice is being lost in some cases, right? Because now people are beginning to sound like AI. So, what is the balance in finding your authentic voice and utilizing tools that'll help you generate things a bit quicker than your own content?
Absolutely. So my number one rule when using AI, depending upon what it is, but if it's something that you're writing for your business or for your brand, maybe you're writing an ebook or different things like that, you always have to season the dish. And what I mean by that is you can say, hey, I'm writing a book about branding. Give me a table of contents, and it'll spit out. You have to go back and look at it. Would I say this way? You know what I'm saying? You're using AI as a tool, but then you have to go back and season the dish with your style of verbiage. You can take it a step further and you can take something that you wrote yourself, put it in there and say, okay, this is my tone of voice. Rewrite what you wrote in my tone of voice, and it'll regenerate something, and it'll be a little bit closer to maybe what you would naturally say. But you just always have to go back and reread it before you post it to make sure that it is authentic to you and how you would naturally sound. Because what will happen is people will read your stuff, then you'll show up live and they're like, okay, she definitely doesn't write her content because that's not how she sounds. So you definitely have to find that balance of, okay, let me review it and make sure that it sounds like me.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what I heard you say that's key is that it's a tool.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be your voice.
Right.
It should be a tool to help generate thought process to help you get your message across. Because sometimes, I mean, as a writer, and you know this because you're an author, right? You have blocks, and it's like, I just need, or you can see it to have a concept, but it's like, how do I make this palatable for people? And that's where then you can ask AI the question and generate some ideas. That doesn't mean you have to even use them. It just gets your mind moving in a different direction, maybe, than it would have otherwise.
Absolutely. I remember when I first came into contact with ChatGPT, and I'm like, what? Like, brain explosion is not even, can't even do it justice. Like, I mean, I probably wrote like 3 books. Now I ain't publish them, but just like, typing things in to see like what it can generate. Oh, give me a workout. If I want to lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks, give me like recipes. If I only have cornstarch, rice, and cheese, give me 18 recipes. Like, it was just like mind blowing. Like, I probably sat on there for like 3 hours the very first time, like got lost to completely. So again, it is an excellent tool because the way that the business landscape is now, it feels impossible to keep up. If we're honest, with all the different things, everybody has a program, everybody has a book, everybody has all these different things. And so if you are not, if you're only being led by AI, you will just continue to spin your wheels and you'll never actually produce anything, because you'll get caught up in planning. I know I have. So again, just being sure that you have someone like a Coach Holly to help you strategize, and then you can identify where to use AI and where not to.
Yeah, I think that's great because I think a lot of times for me, I'm always looking for shortcuts. I'm looking for ways to do business smarter, not harder. Right. So when you initially say, oh, AI, I think like robotics, kind of, right? Like
Right.
I can streamline this. This might be a way to streamline some things. And I get lost in it. And sometimes I just have fun with it because it's almost like, asking, from our phones and stuff when we ask stupid questions, right? You kind of get lost in that moment. But the reality is we are here to generate what we're good at and do what we're good at. And let's not lose ourselves trying to be what ChatGPT says we need to be or work on things in a certain way. It is a tool. It's
Right.
great to use. I have not found, I mean, I do find in some instances it can streamline some certain things, but at the same time, it's not the end all be all. There's still
Right.
work that we have to put into it.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, I
So
love that.
yeah, and I think too, in this day and age, as an entrepreneur, you still are the juice. Okay. Like, there's nobody that can brand like you can brand. There's nobody that can make a pizza like you make a pizza. There's nobody that can write and persuade the way that you can. And so even though we all have access to AI, you still see that there's a difference when you show up as yourself and when you create your own content and all those kinds of things. And so I want to encourage those of you who are listening right now not to be discouraged that, oh, everything is AI, everybody's using AI. That's fine, because when you're showing up as your authentic self, your clientele is going to be drawn to you because of
Absolutely.
who you are and what you bring to the table. So I lean on that, because now that AI is here, everybody's a copywriter, everybody's a this, everybody's a that, and it's like, initially it was like, okay, so what does that mean for me? It just means that all those people that call themselves all those titles, you have experience that they don't, and
Right.
so they might get people to get into the door, but they can't sustain that business because they don't have the experience. They don't have the eye. They don't have the vision that you have. And so the people that they unfortunately are working with, once they run out, those people are going to then come look for you because you're the real deal.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And Janelle just says, no one can do what I do. And
that's
that's
right.
so true. Nobody can do what we do. Even though we may be doing the same things, it's never done the same way.
Absolutely.
So you said something that I just want to touch on real quickly. When we think about branding, a lot of times we think about um, we think about our photos, we think about those different things. How important is that in the overall scheme of branding?
Oh, oh dear. How much time do we have left? Because, oh my goodness. So your actual appearance is so much more important today than it was 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ago, because we live in such a digital, visual society now, right? Like Instagram, like social media in general, the World Wide Web, right? Like when you hear about something, you go to the website, you go and you Google it. And so if you are Dr. So and so, and I Google your name, and there is a picture of you and somebody's half a head that got cropped out, talking about this is my picture. That jankiness, I feel all of it. And I'm like, nope, don't want any parts. So it because so now your pictures and what you present online is your first impression with people that you don't even know are looking at you, right? And so you have to just know, or not know, but be mindful, what do I want people to experience before they meet me? Because what they experience before they meet you can make or break whether or not they take the step to get to know you. We do judge books by their covers. We do, naturally. You know, like kids will look at you and be like, no, I'm not feeling them, just based on how you look, right? So, you know, your presentation has to be top tier just to cut through the noise.
Right.
You know, and that's with your headshots, that's with your flyers. Don't get me started on these flyers out here, okay? I cannot, like, you want me to come to your conference. This is a conference. You're bringing in international speakers, and you got people floating on the side of the flyer. They're not anchored to nothing, but they're just kind of hanging out there. You got 29 different fonts. You got, the flyer makes me feel confused. The flyer makes me feel anxious because it's cluttered and it's just not, it's not. And so you have to be mindful that the visual things that you're putting out now, they have a lot more work to do than they did in the past. People are no longer just going to come off the strength of they see your name on there, right? Like they might, but that group of people is becoming smaller and smaller. If you want to get into a new pond, if you want to get new people to come, you have to present at another level to cut through the noise of all the other stuff that's going on out there. Yeah. For real. Funeral flyer. Oh my gosh. Talking about come to my event. Like what?
I know for me too, one of the things that drives me nuts, and I see this on LinkedIn a lot. And so I just want to help everybody on LinkedIn. When you are showing up as a professional, stop putting 10-year-old pictures out there. Because when I show up to meet you for a meeting and I've never met you in person, and maybe we're in a crowd, I need to know who I'm seeing. And I see a picture that's like you 15 years ago.
Right.
I mean, I don't know who you are in a crowded room. And that's a problem, right? Yeah. So we have to do better in presenting our authentic selves.
Absolutely.
Because now I'm like, why have you not done something about it?
Yeah. You have to embrace who you are today.
Yeah.
That again goes back to that know, like, and trust factor. I can't trust you if you two different people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I can't, because, you know, and maybe I'm the only one that reads that deeply into it. But if you're showing 15-year-old headshots, to me, that says that you're holding on to the past in other areas. So do I want to work with you if you can't even let go of an old picture, or you can't even prioritize your presentation enough to get new photos done? Why? Because it does not take a lot to get new photos done in this day and age. Like you can legit take your iPhone 15 and brush your hair and put on some lip gloss and take a better picture You know what I'm saying? So to me, it tells me that you're not committed in certain areas. So what you present speaks volumes to the people that you're trying to reach, and you don't want to leave room for interpretation when it
Yeah,
comes to your brand.
absolutely. And what's interesting about that is I never thought about it the way you just stated it, that if you can't let go of the picture, what else are you not letting go of, right? But there's always a question in my mind. So maybe that's what that question is, right? Like, what are you hiding?
Yeah.
That's what I think. Like what's being hidden, right? And we have to be in a place where we can embrace who we are so that we can help other people do the same, whether it's in branding, in their business, any of that. So
Absolutely.
so, Brittany, just before we finish out, because we are at the half hour and I want to be mindful of everybody's time, I'm going to throw up. I know you've got a promotion coming up. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes. So I am releasing a new book called Authentic Branding 101. And so, in honor of the book release, I'm hosting a free 3-hour boot camp for building an authentic standout brand. And it's coming up on Monday, October 7th from 6:30 to 9:30. And if you are feeling the energy of the Brittany Ann Smith right now, just buckle your seatbelts. Okay. You want to sign up for this. Again, like I said, it's a free 3-hour boot camp, and I'm literally going to walk you through some of the strategies that I highlight in the book. And the book it's a nice marriage between textbook and life stories, because we're going to be walking through the 7 strategies that you need to be profitable and authentic in your brand. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, and it's totally free. So you can register at bit.ly/freeab101. Just make sure you put it in all caps. Or you can also go to authenticbranding101.com as well, and you can get it that way too. So yeah, meet me at the place online on the 7th of October, and it's going to be a great time.
I love that. You can always reach her at her website as well, Brittany Smith Creative. You can see some of the examples of what work she's done and how she has helped other people face somewhat of their fears in branding in order to get them across the line. I know just from working with her and just from a personal perspective, because it's true, when you work with her, you just become friends because that's who she is. She brings the energy and all the good vibes with her as you work with her. So you are in for a treat. You definitely want to be there in October on the 7th to be part of this free event. Now, I will say this, normally this stuff is not free. So the fact that she is doing this, take advantage of it, especially for those of you that say, I don't have the money to hire somebody to do this. This is free. Take advantage of it. So, Brittany, thank you so much for being part of our Business Bites with Mind Your Business. I'm so honored that you would be here today.
Thank you for having me. I had a blast.
Oh, I did as well. And this will not be the last time you see Brittany Ann Smith. She'll be back.